Welcome to our most exciting episode of Quicklit to date. Oh my gosh. In today's episode, one of our podcast dreams are coming true. The first book that we, Fantasy Femme Fatales, covered was Anathema by Keri Lake. As we dished and dissected in those deep dive episodes, over and over again, we talked about how amazing it would be to interview Keri Lake herself and have the chance to ask all of our burning questions and put to rest some of our craziest theories. And today is the day. And if you missed those episodes or aren't familiar with Anathema, Anathema is a gothic dark fantasy, and it's the first book in the Eating Woods trilogy. Anathema was released last September, and book 2, Eldritch, is releasing next week on September 9th.
Can't even believe it.
It is without a doubt our most highly anticipated book release of 2025. So this episode is going to be the perfect warm-up before we dive back into the Eating Woods. All of our deep dive episodes and our Eating Woods guide can be found on Spotify and YouTube, including our rapid fire recap of Anathema.
During our Anathema podcast series, Keri supported our content, sharing and connecting as we went along. She loved our Eating Woods episode, which we worked very hard on, so thank goodness she loved it. And we are so incredibly honored that Keri agreed to do this interview with us. In our conversations with Keri, she shared that her preference was to do a prepared interview versus a live format so she could have time to thoughtfully prepare her answers. And we love a thoughtful queen. Today's interview episode will be delivered in a mixed live and pre-recorded answers format. Keri Lake is with us in spirit today and via audio to give us some truly incredible insights to share with you all. The first portion of this interview focuses more on Keri Lake, but as we get into the questions around Anathema and Eldritch, there may be minor spoilers if you haven't read Anathema. So if you haven't read it yet, consider this your spoiler warning. And with that, let's get cozy, settle in, and get into it.
Let's just set the stage here. For all the Keri Lake fans, or for those of you who are interested in the Eating Woods series but haven't read Anathema yet, here is a little bit of background for you. Keri Lake is a gothic romance writer who specializes in demon wrangling, vengeance dealing, and wicked twists. Her stories are gritty, with anti-heroes that walk the line between good and bad, and feisty heroines who bring them to their knees. When not penning books, she enjoys spending time with her husband, her daughters, and their rebellious Labrador and rescue.
Keri is an indie published author who has published 5 standalone books, primarily in the dark gothic romance genre, 1 duology, 1 duet, and is now writing her 3rd multi-book series, The Eating Woods, her first foray into gothic dark fantasy. And I do have to say, I think Sarah can agree, from the first pages of Anathema, we were complete instant fans, and we've been enjoying her work ever since. So if you haven't read it, we highly recommend reading Anathema and any of her other books if you haven't yet. Now, Anathema is a spellbinding gothic dark fantasy about a shunned woman forced beyond the mortal realm's forbidden boundary into a terrifying world of cursed souls and grotesque creatures. This first book sets the stage for a story of prophecy and darkness, magic, and characters who have been made to feel cursed and may find it in themselves to channel their power for the greater good. Time will tell.
We'll see.
We'll see. Without further ado, let's welcome Keri Lake to the Fantasy Femme Fatales podcast.
Let's start things off learning a little bit about you. And let's start with one of your influences, music. What music helps you get in the zone for writing?
It really depends on the story. I try to find songs that help create atmosphere in the book. For example, in the Island of Sin and Shadows, that's set in kind of a Cajun, Louisiana setting, although it's a fictional island in that case. But I still loosely based it on, heavily based it on Cajun culture. So in that case, the playlist was made up of songs that help paint a mental picture of this place in the book.
And how does music influence your writing?
I've definitely been inspired by songs. It's sometimes just a flash of a scene that just kind of snowballs into these massive 600-page books.
I love that. I haven't read the Isle of Sin and Shadows yet, but it is up there on my TBR. But she is absolutely after my heart on this playlist, the Isle of Sin and Shadows. She has Lord Huron, Mother, Etta James. Oh yeah. She's a playlist connoisseur.
She is. I have recently been delving into the Eldritch playlist and like it got me into this like rabbit hole of hers. And I was like, Keri, like a woman after my own heart. Like as if I needed another reason to be a fan.
Okay, Keri, I need to know, do you listen to particular music or have a special writing environment to get you in the right headspace?
The type of music is important, yes, particularly if they're darker or emotionally devastating scenes. I don't wake up in that headspace, so I'm usually pretty happy and ready to tackle the day. In order to write these scenes, for example, like Cadmus from Kings of Carrion, it takes a bit of preparation on my part, and music is a huge part of that.
I'm just picturing Keri getting into her like emo alter ego to write our favorite MMCs.
I'm picturing her like waking up, doing some yoga, and then being like, okay, time to switch gears.
Time to
Let's put
rave.
on 9-inch nails and get in the zone.
I'm obsessed. Now, we know you've been super busy this year writing Eldritch. Have you had any time to read yourself, and what have you been reading?
This has been a little bit of an off year for me. It started out pretty chaotic with writing and some house projects we've had going on. My daughter's in competitive dance, so there was just a lot of hustling around that I haven't really immersed myself fully in other books. I've picked them up here and there, and I'll read a little bit, and then it's just a matter of trying to squeeze in as much writing, as I possibly can. But I'm hoping as things wind down into fall, I can get more reading in, because I'm definitely feeling the absence of it.
If she gets back into reading in the fall, I feel like we all need to know what's on her fall TBR. So Keri Lake, if you're listening, please let the world know what's on your fall TBR.
We won't hold you to it, Keri. Please just tell us what's on your TBR. We're so curious. I also love hearing that Keri is so occupied writing, like selfishly. Like, oh, that's sad you're not reading, but like great for me. Okay, let's go back in time a little bit now. How did you get into writing?
Oh, let's see. I've actually been writing since I was in middle school. It started out as like short stories and poems. I love to write short, punchy little horror stories. When I was in elementary school, I did a little bit, I worked in the library a little bit with our librarian, and I loved it. I loved being around books. It was just so peaceful to me. And I kind of got into writing and reading scarier books for that age level. So from there, it just kind of evolved, and now I'm combining horror and romance together.
I'm kind of obsessed with the fact that she like started with more horror and like scary stuff and kind of slowly delved into the romance world with Anathema and some of the other books we've read. I feel like it's obvious that she comes from that kind of background in terms of some of the people and her writing style that are in her books. So, and also some people were actually saying that they thought Anathema was actually terrifying, which I thought was interesting.
I see that for them. I don't see it for me, but I do see the inspiration. Like I'm like picturing young Keri like working at the library, and I'm like, this is the basis of like a great little gothic story itself.
Right? Like I'm picturing like candelabras hanging from the library ceiling vibes in terms of the horror. Like it is scary, but there's something different for me about like watching an actual movie that is scary and reading it. Like I feel like you can kind of taper it down in your brain, or at least I can.
Yeah, and she's not trying to scare us directly. It's like the environment, the setting, the creatures all have that like gothic horror feel, but it's not like a slasher book, and it's not like Stephen King. It's different. How did you decide to start actually writing books outside of the poems and the short stories?
It started out more as a relaxing pastime during lunch breaks when I was working at the hospital. My days were just really stressful, and I'd so look forward to going to my car and just like sitting there, even in winter. I mean, it'd be like freezing outside, and I would, have the heat going in my car, wearing my gloves, writing in a little notebook, just entire chapters and scenes. And I didn't have a laptop at the time, so it was entirely by hand. And I'd just fill these notebooks up with, scenes and ideas and stuff for these books. And
when I was younger, I used to write poetry too, and I used to write songs, but I never got over myself. So it's like very cool to hear a story about someone having that creative piece of them and then like rushing to your car on your break to get that out of your system and calm yourself
Right?
down and then believing in yourself enough to like just push that forward. Like,
Huge. I would love to hear some of her short stories or her poems. Like, I would kill to get my hands on that notebook. Not gonna lie.
put one photo on Instagram for us.
All right, so switching gears a bit, given that we are fast approaching Summerween and fall is right around the corner, and we know you're a lover of all things gothic, we have to know, what is your stance on Halloween?
Halloween is about the only holiday that I would say I go out of my way to celebrate. Some of the other holidays can tend to overwhelm me sometimes, just the, big social settings and such. And I feel like autumn is a little calmer and quieter.
I think the only thing that keeps me going in the darker months is Halloween. So honestly,
Yeah.
no surprise that she's also obsessed. I would be surprised if she wasn't.
So happy we were spot on. You're painting such a wonderful picture for us of like what exactly Keri's life is like behind the pages.
Still on the Halloween topic, I need to know, what does your house look like during spooky season?
I love anything and everything to do with witches. I love ravens, of course, skulls. It's pretty festive in my house.
Oh, can you send us some photos maybe? Are there photos available? Halloween's coming soon.
I need the inspo, 100%. I'm having a Halloween party this year. I was going to do slasher theme, but maybe I do Keri Lake theme. Like, that could be a thing.
Gothic fantasy.
Or I'm going to need your help bringing it all together.
Oh, I'm excited. Okay. Are you a Halloween costume person?
I wouldn't say that I'm a costume person, no. I do host a witches brunch every year. It's like my mom, my sisters, friends, that sort of thing. And we all dress up as witches. And that's a lot of fun.
Yes. Like if you're ever open to guests, like I can absolutely make myself available. Witchy brunch sounds like incredible. It's like my dream.
We'll make a big old witch's brew.
Yeah. Like Kara and I can be available if you're ever interested in opening the table up a little bit. Like
Just open it up a little bit.
just a little.
We won't fangirl. We're going to get it out of our systems today, right?
Yeah. We're actually cool.
Yeah.
I think. So now that you're warmed up a little bit, let's talk about your writing. You're so talented and we have so many burning questions. You've written across different genres from books like Nocticadia to Nightshade and now Anathema, which have some common aspects but differ quite a bit. So how do you switch between these different types of storytelling?
I feel very fortunate to have readers who are willing to jump around with me. If they weren't so flexible and forgiving, I'm not sure I'd be able to write as consistently. Part of what I love about writing is getting to explore new worlds, new genres. Prior to writing Anathema, I had never written a magic system before. It was something that I'd always wanted to do, but I found it so intimidating early on. So I waited until I had, a few more books under my belt to tackle something that complex. For me, it's entirely based on mood. I have a number of notebooks with ideas, and it's just a matter of which story grabs me. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not the same genre. I mean, I will bounce from contemporary, and then all of a sudden I'm feeling like, I need to write zombies. So I just kind of jump around.
The fact that this was her first magic system is shocking to me. That is crazy. Also, for those of you who don't know, we do have a guide that goes into a little bit more depth on the magic system in Anathema. It's not a spoiler, so we'll make sure that we link that as well. But even just reading some of her other books, like Nightshade, there's already so many different aspects and multi-dimensional layers of that book that it's almost a magic system. I wouldn't say it's a magic system, but it's different layers of creatures that serve different purposes. Mm-hmm. So for this to just be her first go at it, I'm just kudos. That's crazy.
Also the fact that she's like, oh, thank you to my fans for just being willing to read whatever I write. Keri, we couldn't help ourselves if we tried, but thank you for making us part of this.
Literally, you're very humble. That's sweet, but your books are amazing. Do you see a common thread that runs throughout all of your work?
Definitely. There are comfort themes for me that readers might consider signature traits in my stories. There's always going to be a Byronic male lead with some sort of dark past, and the FMC is going to be a woman trying to break away from something and escape her world or her environment. I don't tend to write a lot of content FMCs. They're usually pretty hell-bent on getting out of a situation. The setting is going to be a castle, a mansion, or a cathedral. I love the architecture and history behind those, particular structures. I mean, a castle, it has so much history behind it, and they're just really fun to incorporate into the story as sort of a character themselves.
The keep, Eidolon's keep.
Yeah, I was getting the little shimmering ghosts in my head already.
I love what she shared about the FMCs too. I know we talk about this a lot in our podcast, but when the FMC is insufferable, it's just so hard to connect and like really feel like you're in it. So it's always a welcome vibe when Keri Lake brings us like an actual MMC with substance.
Yes. And she's like got a journey to go on, and we want to go on it with her because we like her and we believe in her.
So Keri, your earlier books were more focused on dark romance, so this seems like quite a shift to move into the fantasy space. Can you talk to us a little bit about that process of shifting from romance to fantasy?
Fantasy has always kind of been a comfort genre for me, whether it's books or movies. My favorite movie of all time, I've mentioned, is Pan's Labyrinth, and I watch it every year, and I love the atmosphere. I love the story, the characters. I've always wanted to write something along those lines, the dark, oppressive setting where magic just sort of offers a glimmer of hope. And I got to play with that a little bit in Anathema. You have like this highly religious setting that Maevyth grew up in, and the idea of magic is so far-fetched for them. And, just to know that on the other side of this forest that they absolutely fear is this whole other world. It just really, it was such a fun story to write for me.
The glimmer of hope on the other side. I really like that because do you remember when Maevyth crossed, like when she finally crossed the eating wood without giving away too much?
Right.
I feel like there is like a found family aspect of the book
Mm-hmm.
that kind of gives you that feeling that Maevyth is going to find her place.
Absolutely. Even before she crosses over and she finds something, she keeps it like against her best judgment almost. And maybe that's why, is because that is that little thread of hope that this like mysterious thing that doesn't belong maybe belongs to her. I never thought of that part of the book as being hopeful, her crossing over because of dances, but I think it's maybe not until she discovers what's on the other side, because she's been told a different story, right? So I love that perspective. How long did you have the idea for this series before you actually began writing it?
I'd say I've had it swirling in the back of my mind for a number of years, but as I mentioned, tackling a complex magic system and world building was a little intimidating. I really wanted to have a better handle on those individual elements before diving into a story that encompassed all of that. So I waited a little bit, and I'm glad I did, because I think Anathema, if I had tried to write that, a few years ago, I don't know that it would be the story that it is now.
It's still baffling to me because, like I said, Nightshade was really a multifaceted book, like with all these different layers and powers and politics. It's just cool looking back and like seeing how she was able to create that and then is kind of like taking it to the next level with Anathema.
Yeah, I think it speaks to how seriously she takes her craft and the bar she's set. There are books where the author definitely wouldn't have gone as in depth, then maybe wouldn't have found themselves in the situation that she found herself in, where she realized like, this isn't a duology, it's a trilogy, because I have a really solid understanding of this world and the history and the magic, and it can't be told that quickly. And I think taking it so seriously has probably given her that space to understand it much more deeply. You've written some of our absolute favorite male main characters. So can you share some insights into how you develop those male main characters?
I like to tease out their backstory first. This helps me determine what and who is important to them. I don't necessarily have a face or a personality in mind until I know what he's been through. Once that's established, it's somewhat effortless to, develop the physical features of them. But having that backstory and, knowing what their motivations are is crucial.
Well, you have great taste in men. I'll just say that.
Great taste. Immaculate, dare I say. I really love that she kind of starts with the trauma. No one really likes to admit that like trauma shapes you as a human being. It does. It does. It influences your perspective, your mannerisms even. And so I think it's really smart to like just start there as an author.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I mean, even in some situations like Zevander, it's going to influence his physical appearance. He just can't be who he is at this point in the story without having that background.
If I was a writer, I would probably start with like how the man looks, which is exactly why I'm not a writer.
Yeah. We also just take a moment to apologize, Miss Lake, for the episode where we were screaming about poles. We do recognize now they are piercings, but we had a bit of a moment, and we know we're going to learn more about exactly where those came from, but I feel like we've matured a lot.
We've matured. Those were early days, actually. Don't watch those. Like we've improved.
Yeah. They're not for public consumption. That's a lie. We do want you to watch them, but just bear in mind.
Bear in mind, they were our first episodes, like our first episodes ever. So on the note of trauma, how do you come up with your characters' dark, morally gray / black parts to make them feel human and relatable to your readers?
It goes back to their past and what they've suffered, what's important to them. Zevander has suffered horrific torture and abuse, which ultimately turned him kind of cold and detached. But he has a sister, Rykaia, who boldly inserts herself into his life, whether he's comfortable with that or not. And these sort of interactions tether him to his humanity, I think.
That is so cute. Like, that is so cute. Rykaia.
Mm-hmm.
I love that she's used as like a plot device in some way to like bring his character growth forward.
And like, we need those people. She is the only family he has, and vice versa. I fucking love Rykaia. She is one of my favorite characters. She's just like so interesting and entertaining and observant.
She's sly and mischievous and a little bit slutty, and I love it. Now that she mentions like the piece of humanity, I feel like Rykaia also does the same thing for Maevyth as well, like in their friendship and like showing her she can trust people. So I think that she also acts as that catalyst for Maevyth too, which is cool.
I think so. Rykaia, through the story as we know it so far, been the first person in such a long time to make her feel seen for who she is. Like when she's been an outcast in Foxglove and she's talking to Rykaia about that, and Rakaia's like, fuck them. They're the ones with the problem. So refreshing and heartwarming to get a character like her who can make Maevyth feel good about who she is.
On that note, can you walk us through your process in developing characters like Maevyth or Zevander? Do they first appear to you as a single image, an entire scene, or what does that look like?
I'd say an entire scene. I knew from having developed her backstory that Maevyth was going to be shunned and rejected. I won't go too much into that. You'll find out more from Eldritch, but given her environment, it made sense that she would evolve into a character that didn't quite fit into the oppressive community that she grew up in. Same with Zevander. He suffered quite a bit throughout his life, so it made sense that he'd become an assassin. It just felt the most fitting role for him based on his past.
The breadcrumbs, Keri. The breadcrumbs.
As soon as she says, I'm not going to get into it, I'm like, no, please, like, get into it. Please. The one thing that came to mind when she said that was like the entire scenes. It reminds me of That's So Raven. Like, she was psychic and she would have, like, it was on the Family Channel and she would have these visions. And so I just I picture Keri just like stopping her day and having a vision and then like running off to like a little dark room, putting on her music and just furiously writing notes in her car in the dead of winter.
In the library. The hospital, little subtlety there. The little like sprinkle of like when she used to work at the hospital. I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. Imagine if Keri Lake was your, I don't know what her job was. Can you just imagine though? She's like writing these like gothic stories about all this crazy shit and all these hot men.
I feel like she was in a lab, like doing blood work or like something like that.
We're just like trying to build the mental image of who you are because you've just been a shadow behind a computer for this whole time. We're getting your voice. It's so very exciting. Keri, you are very talented at building beautiful, tension-infused relationships with top-tier spice. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you like to use spice in a story?
The spice in Eldritch is definitely going to be part of the character development. Those scenes are a bit more emotional in this book, not just for the sake of adding steam. They're going to be gradual and healing and show a little bit of a vulnerability to Zevander's otherwise cold and detached character. I feel like this strengthens his bond with Maevyth and serves as a catalyst behind some of the decisions that he makes throughout the story.
In a certain scene, the cough cough ambrosia scene, if you know, you know, like that was intentional. That like drove the plot forward. It wasn't just smut for the sake of smut. Like that was tastefully done.
There are things that happen later in Anathema that are very much charged by intimacy over spice. And I felt like that was very refreshing to see because it was very much about the dynamic and like the wound. So I get where she's coming from when she's talking about the spice being healing, because at its core, like you have two people who are invested in each other. There should be emotions there, and there should be things that come up, and there should be ways through it, and that bonds you. And so it does make me very excited about Eldritch.
I think that they could both be like to each other catalysts for each other's healing. So I am super excited to see how this goes, despite potential odds that might be stacked against them. There are odds.
Yeah, there are odds. We know how consumed you've been by Eldritch over the last year. You have been very open and honest about that. So is it crazy to even ask if you've been thinking about new projects outside of the Eating Woods series? Like, what do you got cooking, Keri? Anything?
That is not crazy at all. I have always had another story brewing in the back of my mind, and that is the case even now. It's just always a thing for me to have another book sort of waiting for me to finish out the series or, single book that I'm working on at the time. And it just kind of gives me something to look forward to on the horizon.
If you had said I'm thinking about retirement, I would have been real uncomfortable.
No, literally. Like I can die happy now because this is exactly why I haven't gotten to Juniper Unraveling or the second book in the Nightshade duology. Like I need to savor every single page turn. I need time with my Keri Lake books. I need time.
Absolutely. Yes. But she's got things cooking and she's got multiple notebooks of ideas. Did we hear that? Multiple notebooks,
multiple stories,
genres, like all the above. So we can all sleep well at night.
Okay, Keri, please can you tease us with any little details of what could be coming down the pipeline for you?
I have a few ideas in mind, but it's really going to be whatever mood I'm in when I settle in to write the next book. I'm a little bit of a pantser when it comes to writing, and if I'm not feeling it a couple of chapters in, I'll just kind of set it aside and maybe look at one of the other stories that I've jotted down or taken notes on.
These notebooks.
I can only imagine the unwritten stories in there.
I'm just so curious what they look like. Are there song lyrics in there? Are there photos? Like, is it a collage? Is it a scrapbook?
Honestly, you could feed me scraps and I would say thank you. Do you plan to write more books in the fantasy, dark romance, or other genres?
I would love to, yes. My first fantasy was a good experience, and I would love to design another magic system in the future. I'd also love to write another dystopian. Closing out my Juniper Unraveling series was kind of sad for me, actually. I got so attached to those characters and their stories, so I'd love to jump into more dystopian. I'd also love to incorporate, I have a science background, and it was so fun getting to incorporate that into dark academia.
I would love to read Juniper Unraveling. I used to read dystopian books and like watch those types of movies. So I've always loved it and I think it would be really cool. And I'm also not against more Professor Bramwell type books. Like I'm okay with that. Like let's do that.
Give us an interconnected, like not Decadia inspired series. Different diseases, different professors. Bring out the cathedrals, like bring all those, like the chandeliers, the keep.
Bring it out. Bring it out. We're going to read it all. You can be so sure that we will be patiently awaiting these book releases with bated breath, Keri Lake.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit here. Let's talk about the Eating Woods series as a whole. So, what was the catalyst for writing the Eating Woods story?
As I mentioned, this book was very loosely inspired by Pan's Labyrinth, a little bit of The Witch, a little bit of Hansel and Gretel, and even a little bit of Slewfoot by Bram. I wanted to kind of fuse the dark fantasy elements that I love from those stories into something romantic with bits of horror, and it just kind of evolved as I was plotting it, and I loved the story more and more as I went along.
Makes me so happy to hear her talk about it.
She's so humble sounding. Like, why are you so humble? You're literally one of the best that there ever was.
Are there any overarching themes or sentiments that stand out to you when you think about this series?
The most prominent would be religious persecution, exclusion, rejection, and even a little bit of feminine rage.
Feminine rage!
Who doesn't love a little feminine rage?
I feel like we clocked that from the get-go. Like, Maevyth, our feminist queen.
Mm-hmm.
She's our icon.
I feel like we haven't seen Maevyth's feminine rage yet. Like, we've seen the spark. We know it's in there. We know that she has just been so oppressed. But, like, when that day comes, Kara, oh, I'm so excited for Maevyth to just be, like, in her full glory.
I hope we get a taste in Eldritch. I really, like, that would just give me life. Okay, so we have an idea, but we want to hear it from you. At its core, what is this series about, and what does it represent to you?
So this story is, in a nutshell, it's about a woman who's treated as an outcast because the leaders of the community that she lives in decided that she was different from everyone else. She just wants to be accepted and viewed as one of them. She doesn't want anything special. She's not, trying to be, anything different than what they are. But she's constantly reminded by them that she'll never truly be integrated into their community. I think several readers can maybe relate to this on some level, whether it's in school, social settings, wherever they might experience a sense of exclusion. And, in my case, the religious elements are very personal for me. So in terms of the setting of Foxglove, I wanted to create a place that was oppressive and almost suffocating in a way. We tend to imagine our world much smaller than it is, and we don't even realize that there's so much more beyond, where we are. But we're so trapped in this limited scope sometimes, and there's a fear of venturing beyond what's comfortable and familiar. And it doesn't matter that it might be better or that you might feel more accepted, somewhere else. It's sometimes very difficult to force yourself beyond that invisible boundary into a bigger world.
The part that really stuck out to me was how, like, the fear of the unknown almost, like Maevyth being the outlier in Foxglove. She's scared to go to the Eating Woods, but then there's also the people who are ostracizing her that are driven by fear. For Maevyth, it's this fear of like what's beyond the Umber Veil. And then for the villagers in Foxglove and like the Red God and the people of that religion, they are fearful as well, but they're fearful of not having that control. So I think that's pretty interesting, like in terms of the duality between the two. Mm-hmm. I just really like how she's able to play with those different elements. And it's also not just Foxglove that sees that religious oppression. Like it's also in Etheria.
I think she brought like a lot of emotion to that response and gave us a little bit of a glimpse into the life experience that's inspired some of these things. I think with religion, sometimes it can come from both sides. It's like even when you feel like something doesn't align with your life, the fear of leaving that and how you might be seen by doing so, even if that's like a core belief of yours, like that sense of belonging, even when things don't feel healthy. It's like that's so relatable to relationships, family dynamics. Like there's a lot of that where it's like the fear of leaving something that's harmful is just as scary as like going outside your backyard or something.
100%. Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate in that way, both to Keri and both to Maevyth in this story.
Mm-hmm.
Something that we have been absolutely dying to know is the Eating Woods still planned to be a trilogy, or has there been any talk of adding books, possibly within the main story or as side stories or novellas?
For now, I'm focusing on the trilogy, but this world is pretty vast, so I'm not entirely dismissing the possibility of spin-offs or novellas. It's just going to depend on what pulls at me when I sit down to write.
Please, God, yes. I mean, like, we'll take anything, but like, that's very exciting.
Yes, and honestly, I kind of love the idea of a Dolion side quest. Does he deserve love? Like, could we make that a romantasy, or can we just make that like a zany Dolion novella? Like, I think that would be funny.
For some reason, Inspector Gadget jumped into my head when you started talking about Dolion side quests or Rykaia, a Rykaia side story.
Oh my gosh, a Rykaia side story would be incredible.
We'll
love
see
that.
what we get in this series first, and then we can ask so many questions. Visions were used as an interesting storytelling device in Anathema. They presented us with new characters, concepts, and also foreshadowed events. So can you talk to us about how you've used visions in the story so far and how they might continue to be used in the Eating Woods series?
I look at visions as nothing more than a glimpse of the world. In this series, it's through someone else's eyes. It's not concrete. The smallest details can influence the future, sort of like a butterfly effect. So Dolion might have a vision of what will be, but so many things can change the trajectory of it before we get there. And ultimately, it may or may not come to pass as a result of that. It's a very limited scope, seeing the world through someone else's interpretation of it. And, visions will continue to be important as the story progresses. Some will come to pass, some won't. It's sort of a means of, giving the reader an idea of, how the actions throughout the story change the course of, what's going to happen. It's not to say that these are unreliable per se. Maybe they'll just, have other interesting variables to them. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to say anything spoilerish here, but it's really hard to do.
You're really just like swerving and turning around here in your answers.
Doing some gymnastics for sure, but like, okay, that was so interesting. Ooh. Okay, so I love this little tidbit on Dolion and like the idea that nothing is necessarily right or wrong, like it's not written in stone. Different perspectives can kind of guide the reader to like come up with their own answer, like come to their own conclusions. And also, if you've seen our other episodes, you would know that I feel like there's something, just like a little something that Dolion isn't telling us. So I like that we're getting this perspective. I got my eyes and ears peeled.
Honestly, I just keep getting flashbacks of that one very confusing vision in part 3, I think, of Anathema with the twin. So I'm like, yeah, tell me more. But I love what you're giving us, Keri, because we are hearing you that visions aren't facts and the butterfly effect. The butterfly effect is a very interesting point to make. It's not to say it's not reliable, but it's like things can change.
Heard, but also that means we're going to be even more dumbfounded and lost.
We're gonna be psychotic.
We were already psychotic.
It's actually very helpful clarity because everyone has a different interpretation of how they use visions, and sometimes it really is like this is going to happen, and now we know we can't put all of our money on it. So settings like the Witch Knell almost feel like characters themselves. So what role did the setting play in your storytelling, and how do you use it to influence your characters' actions and emotions?
Setting is very important to my books. And as you pointed out, I treat it sort of like a character as well. Obviously, in Anathema, the Eating Woods is a fearsome place that the villagers avoid, but there's a shift that takes place when Maevyth finally steps through that boundary and stumbles upon another world.
Where I noticed that being the most prominent was actually when she went back through the Umbervale to go into Mortasia. And I forget exactly what it was, but it was like, I remember like a reference to the full moon, like guiding her along the way or something like that. Was that at that part?
I think at both of them, actually. I
Was
think
it?
before she
Okay.
goes in the first time, she looks up and like there's like the moon, and then that's before she does the bone whip for the first time. And I do
Yeah.
think there was a reference to the moon, now that you mention it, before she goes in.
From Etheria to Mortasia for the first time. I really like that, you know, she's feeling different about this fearsome Eating Woods place.
She's changed by going into the woods. She's changed by coming out on the other side and like finding Rykaia and Zevander and these people who've like given her a sense of belonging. She's there to find her sister, to protect Zevander. So
And she's also come into her power a little bit too, which is exciting. We picked up on some words with deeper meanings in Anathema. For example, words connected to Greek origins, gods. You shared you don't typically take direct inspiration from mythology and cultures. So can you talk a little bit about how words, languages, and myths have influenced the Eating Woods world?
I do my best not to borrow directly from existing cultures and mythology because of the risk of offending or misrepresenting. That's not something I want to do in my books. They might loosely inspire bits and pieces in my writing, but I try not to outright copy or pull too much of what exists in our world. And this is where I found a good sensitivity reader can be incredibly helpful. I found one for Eldritch who was lovely, very knowledgeable, very informative, and I really appreciated her feedback and guidance for the story. What I've found is that it's fun to create my own lore and mythology. That's just part of the creative writing process. And in Nocticadia, the entire island has its own superstitions and history and lore. I made up stories that were passed down through generations. I love creating this entire complete world that I know can seem overwhelming, but so is ours in a way. There are so many different cultures and history with those cultures and so much that you want to learn. And it inspires you to seek out knowledge. And that's what I want for my characters. I want them to seek out and, experience their world as we would our own. So, there will be parallels to what exists in our world because, that's what I grew up with. That's what I know. But I do my best to make it my own and specific to the story and the world that I'm building.
When she was like, my world can be complex, but so is ours. It's so true. Like, you can really feel that from her writing. Her worlds are so rich and unique, and we're taken on a journey along with the protagonist, and we kind of uncover the world as we go, just like the protagonist would, right?
mm-hmm.
And I think in some cases, not all, we've read some really great books this year, but in some of them that haven't been, our 5-star reads, they can feel one-dimensional, and that's just not on the table for Keri Lake's books. If you're a listener and you haven't read one of Keri Lake's books, which is absolutely crazy and should be illegal,
You should be ashamed of yourself.
yeah, like you must know that her books are so rich and multi-layered. Like you're gonna get a banger. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. And I can see what she means when I think about Maevyth's journey in this book. She gets that tome, right? That like large book. And there's no angle in the story forcing her to uncover these things. It really is like of her own volition. She's given the tools, she's given resources, the people are around her who will teach her things, but they know they don't know everything. They're actually kind of learning alongside her. So I really love that as an element of the story and something that Keri has been intentional about, is that her characters need to have that same desire and curiosity of their own history and
Yes.
what they're capable of, like all of it.
Oh my gosh, it makes it so fun as a reader. It's like a mystery that you're unraveling like with the characters, and I think that's what makes it so fun. Nothing is obvious. Like nothing is obvious. Like you are left with symbols, folklore. I have goosebumps right now.
Yeah.
All of these questions that like you have to piece together with unreliable information. I feel like after all of the books that we've read, sometimes it does start to get a little rinse and repeat in certain books. And you're like, oh, I see this coming from a mile away. I've never once felt like that with Anathema. And I don't think I've ever felt like that with any of her books. It's 100% a strong suit of hers.
Yeah, and I think it reflects her personality. To make others curious, you must be curious yourself. So you're willing to dig deeper into these ideas and these characters and these stories so that you have the answers, so you can work with them and then you can craft a story around that. Like, it's obvious in other books when that curiosity isn't there, because if it was, you'd be giving us more depth.
Yes. Yes, sister. Tropes such as Chosen One, prophecies, gods, and reincarnation have been used in Anathema, and some key themes have focused on the idea of true gods versus false gods, what it means to be a believer, and the history of the old gods. So, what can you tell us about these plot devices and what should we pay attention to?
I grew up around religion and with very religious family members, but I wouldn't say that I personally have, strong ties to any specific religion. I respect all religions. I respect, the customs and cultures of each religion. But for me, this sort of mirrors our world in a way. We have all these different religions and perceptions and expectations, but who's right and who's wrong? It is kind of a unreliable voice. There is no reliable voice in life to validate anything. We believe what speaks to our hearts, or in some cases, what we've been sort of indoctrinated to believe. And in Anathema, you have the mortals and their belief in a single god, and the immortals who believe in many gods, but they all exist in this non-physical form for the most part, and they're seen in visions and realms by individual characters. The gods definitely play a significant role in this trilogy by motivating the different groups. Nearly every aspect of what they do is centered around the gods. They're tied to these gods, and they will continue to be for the next couple of books.
A couple things came to my mind. Firstly, I love what she said about religion. I also grew up religious and kind of like grew out of that as life went on. And lately I've been there's nothing wrong with being religionless. Like you can believe in whatever you want to believe. But lately I have been feeling called to like some sort of worship, I guess. But like a Unitarian church. It's like, it's more about the individual freedom of your beliefs rather than a specific religion. So like during a sermon, they might bring in like multiple different religions. And it's really just about internalizing that information and doing what you want with it. Like it's the belief that there's something to be said about every single religion and its beliefs, which I think is kind of cool. I really liked what she said about like respecting other religions. Sometimes it's looked at as like you're either religious or you're not. So I kind of like the middle ground that she was sort of speaking to there.
Yeah, and I think that is like a core theme in part 1 of Anathema, is that belief is black and white and there is one true God. And if you don't believe in that God and if you act against the beliefs of what that God wants, then what does that mean? And you're banished and you're a sinner and you're all these things. Very black and white. I do find it very intriguing to have a story that revolves around these communities where there are these steadfast beliefs in very differing religions and gods. And she is giving us some breadcrumbs. She's basically saying, this is how it's laid out. You don't know who the true voice is, and there maybe isn't one that you've been given that you can stand behind. There is probably a truth, maybe there isn't. But I think her point is that no one is the expert. And that is something that we're going to see in the story, is that sense of belief without having kind of the facts and how someone uses that against someone else too.
Yes. Oh my God, yes, 100%. If you didn't know, pay attention to these gods. Pay attention to these gods and also what each group in this realm believes in as well, because I feel like it's going to be continuing to give us little hints about their motivations in Eldritch.
Mm-hmm.
So this has given me a lot to think about.
There's a lot. And I remember us talking a little bit about like when we were getting some of the like the backstories or like the mythology around some of the gods and there being differing perspectives on the story. I think it was Maevyth and Morsanna. And their story, it's like told one way at first and then they run into that guy at the ball and he has like a different version of that story.
Yes.
So there was kind of this like, what is this? This is confusing, but it's clearly intentional, right? Because her point is that that's how belief in religion works. And there's actually nothing wrong with that. A lot of it is interpretation because
Right.
it's not based on proof. Let's drill into the story and the characters in Anathema. One of Anathema's themes is what is taken will never return again. Now that we've read the book, can you give us your interpretation of this theme and its importance to the story?
In a literal sense, the eating woods consumes those who enter. But more abstractly, a number of my books have this common the world doesn't give without taking theme. That was actually the tagline for my dystopian book, Kings of Carrion. In these harsh worlds, you can expect something good without paying a small price. And the same goes for Anathema, and particularly in Eldritch. The world is unforgiving, and it doesn't always give when it takes.
Leaving it wide open for us, Keri.
You're speaking to us in riddles, girl. There is an air of this like ruthlessness. Yeah, I think unforgiving is a good way to put it. And like, I think for me, that's what makes it so enthralling too. Like, I don't think Keri Lake would be opposed to killing off a main character. You just don't know.
There's a feeling of like sacrifice, like at its purest. That's something what I was hearing when she was saying that is like, because with the give and take, there can be like an exchange. And that can be reversible, but with sacrifice, it rarely is. Sacrifice is bigger than that. It is like, it takes me to Lady Rydane and her child. If we can survive as a family, then we will do this thing and we will live with the consequences of it. This line has been sitting with me since we read the book and like just wanting to have a sense of like, where does it really fit in and what does it represent? And it feels like something that is very important to the world that the story takes place in.
Branimir is the one who said it in the beginning, right?
Yes.
Yes. Ominous.
Can you tell us why you chose the name Anathema for book one?
I chose Anathema for book one, not only because, if you look it up in the dictionary, it's something that someone dislikes. But it's also because it's tied to religion in a way. It's an excommunication by the church, which is entirely appropriate for Maevyth, who is seen as something evil or cursed by her community and the religious leaders there.
Mm-hmm. Religious undertones, baby. Okay, our girl Malantha stood out to us as a character with the potential to level the playing field for our powerful Zevander. But then she did the strangest thing. She led Maevyth into the Eating Woods and just completely disappeared. So what should we know about Malantha going into Eldritch?
I don't want to say too much, but I will say that Malantha is another very complex character, and you're going to find out a lot more about her in the next book.
This has me questioning everything. I'm excited to dive more into her backstory. Like, at first, I was just like, you know what? We don't love her. We don't love her. She's not on our side. She may be the baddest bitch, but it didn't seem like she was on our side. So now I'm like questioning things.
I think she's bad.
You think she's a bad girl?
I think she's bad to the bone.
I don't know. I'm starting to like question every theory that I had now. And I'm like,
well,
who are these people rooting for? What are they? Like,
we know Keri won't make like a black and white character. They're going to have shades of gray. So I do think that Malantha is on like the other side. She's on the bad side of things, but like Zevander's a bad guy. He's just on our side. Like you said, like she's probably got some shit too, and she's got a reason for being the way she's being.
Yes, yes. So can you give us any other breadcrumbs about Malantha's background or how she might fit into the greater story?
Not without spoilers.
Well played, Keri Lake. Well played.
It's just giving me like Malantha's important. I feel like we've kept our eye on her, and she wasn't a huge character,
No.
but she did have a presence, and I got
Well,
my eyes.
what she did
Right.
was absolutely shocking at the end. Threw me off base because originally I thought she was with the Magistroli. I just associated her with that group. And so now she released her. So what's she doing?
Mhm. A couple of our favorite side characters are Rykaia and Raivox. Can you give us any hints around whether we'll be seeing them in Eldritch and what circumstances we might find them in?
I can't give specifics, but you will definitely see more of Raivox and a few scenes with Rykaia and Eldritch. So yes, expect more of those too.
We're getting to the hard-hitting questions now.
We are. But like bless her because she's trying to be so careful not to spoil things and like I want the dirt, but I do also want her to protect us from the spoilers.
Yes.
Now with Eldritch just around the corner, we absolutely dug up your Eldritch playlist and our guess is that these songs were very very thoughtfully selected both for the vibes and if we know you like we think we might after this conversation also for the lyrics. It was a beautiful playlist by the way. It was absolutely speaking to my soul. And I loved it. It did make me even more of a fan because it's a super cool playlist. We did notice a few things as well. One, there was a good chunk of Nine Inch Nails songs on this playlist. So can we assume that you are a big fan?
Yes, you can assume I'm a big fan. I'm actually going to a Nine Inch Nails concert this Thursday, so very excited about that.
If you're watching, keep an eye out.
We should plug the playlist as well because it's a banger. We'll just have all of the goods in the description.
It's such a vibe, and it actually has such a good mix of like atmospheric, like, ethereal kind of vibes that really set the tone. Like you could listen to a good half of it probably while you were reading Eldritch.
Getting a peek into Keri Lake's world, how she gets ready for writing her characters. On that note, we noticed some themes in the song selections as well. We were getting light versus dark, the darkness within, and sort of being lost to this darkness, judgment, gods, and having to make a choice. So, giving us as much as you can possibly share, how do these themes fit within the story of Eldritch?
As you saw with the end of Anathema, Zevander is battling dark thoughts in his mind, and his body becomes further depleted of vivicantum, it's going to get worse for him. He's really caught between his head and his heart, and that's what a lot of these songs on the playlist represent. Moments when his darkness takes over, moments when he's in love, and the battle in between.
Love it.
I fucking love it. This is definitely going to be in the background playing when we read this book. And also my brain, like with the choice thing.
Yeah, this is also how like we would choose the playlist. Is like the depth and the layers. Maybe one day we'll show you the mood board playlists we began our journey with.
The tagline for Eldritch is that which slumbers should never be awakened. Dun dun dun. So can you give us any extra tidbits on this tagline, why it's an important lead-in to this next part of the Eating Woods story?
Throughout book 1 and into book 2, the reader knows something is building. You're given Dolion's visions in the beginning that speak of a plague. And this book will explore the catalyst of that. It's going to explore how this ancient power, how something shifted in the past. And yeah, I mean, the tagline is very appropriate for this particular story. I can't give too much away. I'm trying to be careful with my word choice here, but it's definitely not easy.
Something is being awakened, Kara.
Something is being awakened. And then she said something shifted. Could it be Deimos through Zevander, his ability to wield Sablefire? Could it be Maevyth and her baptism?
Could be all those things. I was also getting the impression that if she's referencing Dolion in like the past, then I think we're going to get some real origin story stuff of those characters. I think we're going to go back in time and we're going to get like Zevander's origin story. The Lady Rydane questions are killing me. But also Dolion. And I think that was a little bit of a hint she gave us there is that like we are going to get a little bit of like how Dolion became this way. Because we know that Dolion has a very strange story. for how he came to be the way that he is and not being part of the Magistroli anymore.
And he's also Elvenira, and we don't know anything about the Elvenira whatsoever.
You've shared that a large part of Eldritch focuses on telling Zevander's dark backstory and all the things that he's been through. So we are over here preparing ourselves for some tough content, but what can you share with us about why you felt it was important to give so much space to Zevander's backstory in Eldritch?
So Zevander's backstory is incredibly important, not just for character development and motivation, as I've discussed, but also because so many things are going to come to light in those past chapters. I wanted to dive into these scenes with Anathema, but the world building and the introduction of these characters would have made this a 1,000-page novel, and it just wasn't possible. So I decided to just, kind of take my time and explore those past scenes and, help kind of build a story of the present. So I think readers are going to have a better understanding of things after reading Eldritch and see Zevander as more of a multi-dimensional character.
Yes, please. I think it's going to give us the opportunity to see his real humanity because we've seen him without a family. We've seen him as like a servant. We've seen him as an assassin. We've seen him as like just a man trying to survive. And we're starting to see this romance blossom with him and Maevyth. But like he had a family, like he has a brother and he had parents, and so much has changed.
And I also need to hear about the Salesians.
Also the Lunaseer, because I still have my suspicions about Maevyth.
I forgot about that. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She's a Lunaseer. She's got to.
Yeah, she's got to. Okay, I feel like we need some like pump it up music.
We got all our lore out of the way. Just kidding, there's still more.
We are shifting into our rapid fire round. These are intended to be kind of like quick, off the top of your head, like fun questions. So we start off with rank your MMCs, Keri, favorite to least favorite.
We're giving her an impossible task.
We have our own thoughts, but what does the woman herself think?
Oh my God. This is never easy. Okay. Favorite to least favorite would be Zevander, Titus, Six, Professor Bramwell, Jericho Van Croy, Lucian Blackthorn, Thierry Bergeron, Valdis, Rhett Voss, and Father Damon.
Okay, so I know Lucian Blackthorn is from Master of Salt and Bones, and woof, first of all. Titus and Valdis, I think, are from Juniper Unraveling. So are there two love interests? Like we need to read those. Now that you've ranked your MMCs, what is your scale based on?
This scale is based on what characters move me the most and stick with me after the book is written. It's pretty simple. If I feel a strong connection with them, they're just going to be, they're just automatically going to go to the top.
Tell us why the top pick is the top and why the bottom is the bottom.
Okay. If you'd had asked me to rank my characters before Eldritch was written, I might not have placed Zevander first, to be honest with you. I knew who he was. I knew his motivations throughout Anathema. And even though I had a rough sketch of his backstory in my mind, I had only scratched the surface at the end of Anathema. Eldritch definitely put him at the top of my list. He is a complex character, very cold, very detached, who can kill without remorse. But at the same time, when he falls in love, he falls hard. And I fell in love with him after writing this book. He is just such a very cool character to write. You don't get to write these characters very often. And it's just, I loved exploring his backstory a little bit more. And, that sort of helped shape him in my mind a little bit. As for the bottom character, Father Damon was written for a short story, and I really didn't get to dive much into his backstory or learn much about him. He was definitely a fun character, but I wouldn't say he's my favorite one.
There you have it.
Keri Lake's got a crush.
He was already on my top in our last episode.
Jericho, he was one of my top MMCs of this year, like from our last episode that we did, that is Nightshade. And I know I already sold you on that one. So you've got to dive in. I haven't read book 2 though. So, and it does end on a little bit of a cliffhanger. And I've just been scared to pick it up because like I said, I'm scared to run out of Keri Lake book.
Next we have Fuck, Marry, Kill. So this is desert island style. You have to choose one for every category with only these categories. So who would you pick for each based on Zevander, Professor Deverick Bramwell, and Jericho Van Croy?
That is quite the lineup. Can I fucking marry them all?
Oh man, you guys love to make these questions tough. Okay, let's see. Well, Jericho has ties to the afterlife, as we know, so I would probably kill him knowing that he'd come back. I'd have to say Professor Bramwell is who I'd choose for fuck, only because I think those piercings of Zevander's would be pretty intense, as you'll find out. And then Mary would be Zevander. While he seems like this cold and detached guy, he's very obsessed and protective enough to treat his wife or mate like a queen, and I think he'd be good for that.
These picks are so valid. Like, honestly, I can't even argue.
Look, I love the thought process on it. And then I also love the well, he's possessive and he's obsessed with her. And I'm like, so you fit into the wheel from the last episode.
Yes. Oh my God, I love this. My favorite question. We are having such a hard time pinpointing Dolion's true intentions. He is a person with many secrets, and so we wonder whether he's truly looking out for Zevander and Maevyth, or if in some ways he's using them for his own purposes. Would you advise that we, A, keep a close eye on him, put him out of our minds for now, there are greater threats at hand, or put all of our faith in Dolion, he is a good guy?
Dolion is a complex character, and I could see why you'd question his intentions. He's done some pretty shady things up until now, but I wouldn't worry too much about him. He has his shady moments, of course, but overall, I think he means well.
This, my Dolion, K. This is such an interesting response. Like, I wonder if what we're feeling, like, through Dolion is what Keri mentioned in another question. Like, how visions aren't always accurate and can change, and how different people have different motivations based on what gods they follow.
Right. Yeah, and we don't know what he's been through.
Yeah.
It kind of takes me back to like some of those other characters in the Magistroli too, and how
Right.
you got the impression that they were playing the king a little bit too. So like, as a seer, I love a seer character because they're so interesting because they have a power, but with that power comes the power to be dishonest. And no one knows whether you're being truthful or not. So, who knows? Maybe Dolion is being honest, but he's been led astray a little bit and he's kind of lost. But there could be other people who are using their visions to lead people astray. And that's kind of put this false narrative around Dolion.
He is hiding stuff because he did say he knew more about Maevyth than Maevyth had disclosed. So there's definitely, he's a little sneaky. He's a little sneaky. Do we love him? Yes.
I liked that the end of her answer was like, I think his intentions are good though. Like, I like that Keri doesn't know for sure. Like, she's pretty sure that we should be like not worrying about Dolion and like his intentions are good. And I guess there is a whole other book to write still. So, anything can unfold with these butterfly effects.
Literally anything.
Yeah.
God. It keeps me on my toes that she might not even know.
Let's talk about book tropes. Do you have any favorites? That could be your favorite to write or your favorite to read. We just kind of want to get in your brain a little bit in terms of what you like.
I love enemies to lovers, but I like there to be a reason that they're enemies, not just because. They don't have to have like some horrific interaction in the past. It just has to be a good reason, like a relatively good reason. I also love fated mates, forced proximity, and I would say the unreliable narrator is a good one too. I would say forbidden love is probably my favorite of all. I just love the added tension and stress of having to face consequences for falling in love.
Forbidden Love is a good one.
I definitely specifically put unreliable narrator on the list. It is not one of my favorites because it makes me question everything. And the fact that she said unreliable narrator can be kind of fun. We have heard the word unreliable a few times in this episode. Sorry, friends, but you're going to have to like roll it back and see where Keri was talking about whether someone was reliable or not. I feel like she's not playing the unreliable narrator, but she's also not giving us confidence that we should rely on everyone all the time either.
It leaves a lot on the table, even more on the table leading up to Eldritch. Like, I'm just getting so ferociously excited for Eldritch.
For the people listening to this episode, you're only a few days away from Eldritch, and like we are not. We are over here getting ourselves all riled up with like a couple weeks, 3 weeks to go still.
3 weeks.
And the sacrifice, what is taken will never be returned again. Are there any that you actually don't like, that you are not a fan of?
I never really got into the fake dating trope. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not a trope that excites me very much.
She is just like so nice and so polite in all of her answers. Yeah, I'm the same actually. Sometimes it's like thrown in there and it's like won me over. There can be tension, but there's something lost in it for me when like they're already like together, because then they're going to be together.
I mean, I could get behind it. I could get behind a fake dating trope, but it has nothing on Forbidden Love. I think she hit on all of my favorites, like forced proximity.
Yeah.
Forbidden Love. Yeah, she's got good taste.
Now I'm just very curious. Like I want to know what she reads.
So
I know she doesn't read a lot, but I just want to know. Like,
give us some tips. Like, we need more. If it's good enough for Keri, it's sure as hell good enough for us. So now, of course, we have to talk about the upcoming release of Eldritch next week on September 9th. I cannot believe it's so close already. And we are so excited and even more confident that it is going to be the book of the spooky season. Keri, what do you want listeners to know about the Eating Woods series and the upcoming book, Eldritch?
I would say for anyone who isn't familiar with my past to present style of storytelling to just trust the process in Eldritch. My past chapters will help tell the story of the present, and even if it seems like I don't know what I'm talking about or where I'm going with this, it does eventually come together. It just requires a little bit of patience. And same with the multi-point of view chapters. They might seem irrelevant in the beginning, but I promise it's all moving in the same direction. And then, of course, just know that this is a slow burn trilogy. There are going to be some spicy scenes, but, I prefer to write the slow, bubbling tension that happens before we get there. And these characters have a lot to work through. Zavander's past comes into play with this and kind of changes the landscape of those scenes a little bit. So there will be spice, but it's going to be a little bit different from the spice in my other books. There's more of, I would say, like an emotional connection between these two characters.
Love that. Also, love that she was like, hey, be patient, guys. It's like, and like things might not make sense. Take it from us. Everything has a meaning.
Yes.
Pay attention.
I love those little glimpses though. Like we're getting a little bit of a flavor of what the format's going to look like. The reference to multiple POVs. I mean, we got multiple POVs in the first book, but I would have never suggested that that someone would think it wasn't worthwhile. So does that mean we're getting like other character POVs? Like that would be really cool.
I would be so into that.
Any Zodiac fans, any Ruthless boys, you're like, what do you mean? Don't threaten me, Keri. Like I can handle this. Absolutely. I'm ready. We've prepared. We've studied up for the multiple POV books. I'm getting the feeling that it's going to be like we're going to be flipping. So both storylines are going to be evolving at the same time, which I actually love. I know she's saying be patient, but I actually think that shit drives me up the wall in the best way.
Same. I never felt like Anathema was slow. There might have been like a lull in like action at maybe one point. I was in and that was it.
Keri and her team are very intentional about labeling this series as gothic fantasy. It's not romantasy. And that's the thing, is that if you've read fantasy before you read romantasy, then you're familiar with a different style of writing and a pacing. So I think that's where people get thrown off, is that it gets like thrown in with these other books. And I won't go on a whole tangent, but I just saw this post about where did the word romantasy come from. And so I also just kind of like love that for Keri, that she's like, I don't need that word. Like, I am a writer and I write fantasy.
Yeah. And she's like pulling up a seat at the table herself.
Yeah, absolutely.
For everybody out there that is patiently waiting for Eldritch, where can they pre-order a copy?
Oh, I don't yet have a pre-order set up, but I'm working on that. And I will post that on social media once it is available. It's going to go directly into KU, so it'll be available on Amazon. I don't typically do pre-orders just because I tend to run very close to the deadline with these books. But I might have an opportunity to get one up there, at least a little bit before release day, so that you can grab that if you want.
A woman after my heart, running against the clock.
Been there. Yes, that's our only caveat, is that we are recording this episode a bit ahead of schedule here. So it's very possible when this goes live that there will be some pre-order action, and we hope for your benefit that there is.
I just need to hear from your perspective, how amazing was it to listen back to all of these responses to our interview?
Yesterday when we got them, it was super emotional. It's very hard to articulate like what this has meant to us. It was so special to us creating content on a book we were so excited about, and then actually having an author like Keri Lake engaging with us and like making us feel confident in a space that we weren't confident in. We had this like dream that we thought maybe we can make this happen. Let's just like shoot our shot. And like hearing her talk to us on these clips, it was just what?
That was beautiful. You hit the nail right on the head. If you go back and watch our old episodes, like it was Keri Lake's Anathema. It was our first round through, so be a little bit kind to us if you go back and watch those episodes. It's intimidating to get started on a podcast, to think that what you have to say has value and has a space in the community. To get the opportunity to interview someone like Keri Lake, I've been annoying all day talking about it to my husband, so I just can't wait for everyone to get to hear all of the amazing answers that she gave.
Well, that is it for today's questions, but before we wrap things up, any closing comments, Keri?
I just wanted to say again, thank you so much for having me on, and for allowing me to kind of do a deep dive into these into the stories. It's interesting thinking of it from a reader's perspective, and I love getting this. I love seeing how you tease out these stories. I think that's a lot of fun for me. I'm writing it, and I've filling up notebooks as I go, but to get this kind of interesting character dive and plot analysis it's a lot of fun.
We are so happy to hear that, Keri. We have absolutely loved dissecting and analyzing Anathema, and this interview has just been a dream of ours since we were like 10 pages into Anathema and became fully obsessed. And we immediately felt connected to your writing style, and we're so curious to learn more about you and everything we could about this epic story. So from the bottom of our heart, thank you so much for letting us have this interview with you. It's been amazing.
I feel like I'm going to need a little bit of a drink after that episode. Holy shit. Keri, you are always welcome on our podcast, literally anytime. So we hope that you won't be a stranger. We hope we get to collaborate in the future. And this seems like as good of a time as any to let all of our listeners know that we will, without a doubt, 100% be covering Eldritch, so make sure that you stay tuned for that. And we're going to be doing some plotting of our own to see how we might bring that series of episodes to life a little bit differently this time. So please stay tuned for announcements on our fall schedule. And if you haven't already, please follow and subscribe on our socials, YouTube and Spotify, so you don't miss any of the exciting things that we have planned for the months ahead. But for now, we are Fantasy Femme Fatales, and we're out.